Hi everyone, this is Britt Simon. So let me just stop that. So that was interesting. It was interesting for geeks, for law geeks and DV geeks, etc. Quite complex, quite difficult to follow at times. Um, a lot of pretty nuanced argument, but hopefully, if you were listening in. Um, you can kind of see the way the judges were probing from both sides, right? So they were not just taking a view on one side only. They were, they were dealing with both sides of the argument and probing from different points of view, which at times can sound kind of scary because it sounds at times like they're attacking our lawyers, for example. Whereas at times they're also attacking the government lawyers' positions. But that's how the judges need to work. That's what they need to do in order to get to the points that they're trying to figure out. So let's see. So I thought just overall, I think I'm going to try and avoid getting into other points. I don't want to talk about DV 2022 or 23. General things. Just want to talk about this hearing. Just take a few minutes. I just wanted to get a little bit of feedback from what you guys thought, and to see whether it made sense, whether you understood the arguments, etc., or whether you have any specific particular questions, on the hearing today, and to see how that will go. And I'll just reiterate a little bit how things will go from this point forward as well. So Aziz is saying, good luck plaintiff. Charles Cook and Nicolette Glazer offered good speech, but I'm pessimistic about the COA decision. Yeah, I thought Cook was, Charles Cook was particularly strong in his arguments. I think he was a standout performer, frankly, from all of them. On either side, I wasn't particularly impressed with the government lawyers in their style. Cara Alsterberg, I think it is smart cookie, no doubt, but I didn't particularly feel she was strong in any particular area. I thought Jesse did very well in his area, but Charles Cook, when Chuck came up, that was 5 minutes of fun as far as I'm concerned. That was really good. I struggled. Interesting you say about Nicolette Glazer. I struggled to sort of follow her points. I found it a little bit sort of windy trail. Not quite sure. Love her speaking voice. Very nice speaking voice and beautiful accent there. But I don't know whether that added to my difficulties in sort of understanding her points, but I couldn't really follow her trail of thought. And so, maybe it was just too much time before then, but I'm glad you found her arguments to be persuasive. Okay, so let me just quickly take this one. Is there any chance for DV 2021 winners who didn't join any lawsuit? Okay, this hearing was about the Good Luck Go cases, a couple of other cases as well. There is none of those cases cover anyone except for plaintiffs. There is one case that was discussed, which was the case I pronounced Rai, R-A-I, and they pronounced Ray. I think Cara Alsterberg referred to it. That particular case reserved some visas in some specific embassies that were affected by the regional travel bans. So there are, I think, 27 specific embassies where if you happen to be a non-plaintiff or a plaintiff assigned to one of those embassies, which are mainly in Europe, then you could, if this appeal wins, then there will be 966 visas issued to plaintiffs and non-plaintiffs from those embassies. But you had to be previously assigned to that embassy. You can't now say, "Oh yeah, I can switch. I'm in Ghana, but I'm going to switch to Paris because it's covered." No, you can't do that. You had to have been sort of lined up there already, right? Other than that, no. If you weren't a plaintiff on the DV2021 cases, then your chance is over. DV2020, however, is different. It was a lawsuit that covered more people. It covered plaintiffs and non-plaintiffs. And so there was a reservation of 9,095 visas, and that will go to everybody more or less on a first come, first served basis. Okay. What's your feeling about the increased level of visas for Go plaintiffs? It's interesting. So that argument that Charles Cook made was about Go plaintiffs. That was their cross appeal on the numbers. I think the central point that that he's making there is absolutely right. I think the way the math was done gave a disadvantage to the calculation on behalf of the plaintiffs. He's right in his central point. These are not, you have to take out the people that don't even respond, the people that maybe respond but never show up. You have to take out those people and say these people, the plaintiffs, not only were the ones that were fighting, that were responding rather, but they were also fighting for their rights. These were highly motivated people, and it's not like we're giving them special, special preference. But these were the people that would have fought, to get their visa, right? And I'm not comparing them to any other non-plaintiffs. What I'm saying is you shouldn't compare those, as Charles Cook pointed out. You shouldn't compare those to someone who just didn't even bother, putting in their papers, or put in their papers and then would never have showed up, right? So the math is wrong. It's a tough argument. I'd say it's a tough thing. I mean, the court is, they're wrestling with the idea of doing any of this, let alone increasing the numbers. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. What's the next step? Next step will be the three judges there will now take all of the information they've heard today, and all of the written information. There's tons of written information, written pleadings and declarations on both sides. There's tons of that information that the judges are now going to have to review that. They've probably reviewed much of it, I suspect, already. But they're going to have to consider all of that and today's hearing and decide their position. I've heard several of the lawyers say that they anticipate that could take up to about 3 months. Okay, so now there's going to be a period of waiting. There's not much we can do about that. We can't rush the judges. You don't rush the judges. We just have to wait for the outcome. All right. So yeah, feeling good about it, but not, but obviously we have to wait, right? You're feeling positive and hoping for a good outcome. Fingers crossed. What are your expectations? Yeah, pretty much that. That's exactly how I feel. I feel positive about that, hoping for a good outcome. I thought the hearing today was very good, and I think on the balance, if you could win a case based on where the strongest arguments were made, then we would win based on today's showing, right? But that's not necessarily the only thing. I mean, I think we argued very well. I think we argued on balance better than the government lawyers today, right? But there's still a lot of case that needs to be decided. I think the arguments that Raphael and Curtis have tried to make about the floor versus the cap, very briefly, that they've shown that, or they've explained that as being a non-discretionary duty of the government to issue all of the visas in a given year. I've never bought into that argument. I don't think that's true at all, and I'm not surprised that argument has struggled over time. I briefly responded to someone earlier. It's like saying this. It's like you're driving down the motorway and you see a speed limit sign for 70 miles an hour, right? Does that mean you can only drive at 70 miles an hour? You can't go faster. You can't do 71. You can't do 75. But you also can't do 65? No, of course it doesn't mean that, right? And in the same way, a cap that is explained as saying, you can issue up to, and I think it says not in excess of, or something like that. The one of the judges pointed out the wording, but by putting a cap out there, that doesn't mean it's a flaw, and I mean, it doesn't mean it's a minimum. And I feel any argument based around that argument is frankly fairly weak. And I think I'm not sure we should be going down that path, frankly. But anyway, we're going down that path, but I don't think that's a very good path to go. The right to give the decision between Congress and court. I thought that was hilarious. The government saying to a court of appeals, an appeals court, that the court basically has no right to impose themselves on this process. That's a very difficult argument to make to judges, and it isn't how the law is set up in this country. There's the three branches of government, and those of you that are interested can look into what that means. But there is a system of checks and balances where it's recognized that the Congress could make a mistake at some time, or be ambiguous, or just simply need somebody to advocate on behalf of the people against Congress, and for that reason there are courts. And so yes, obviously the courts can say, I'm sorry, Congress, or even I'm sorry, Mr. President, but you have this wrong in this area, and they can work those decisions out. That's the very purpose of the court. And so and it's an important key thing. So for them to try and argue that doesn't apply, that was bizarre. That was really weird. Got a question here from Anwar, DV2022 here. So Anwar, I'm afraid. Oh, okay. You're not asking a question. You're in New York and settled. That's fantastic. I'm pleased for you. Still addicted to the channel. Not concerned at all by DV2021 or 22. Thank you, Anwar. Anyway, good luck in New York. Thank you for that the donation as well. That was sweet of you. Okay, so let me see if I can find other questions here, or other points. Chin, 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 chin. Okay, this is they didn't mention the reconciliation of those who got rejected due to the 9645 PP and now plaintiff in Mo versus Biden. What do you think the status will be? Essentially, you're talking about the Muslim ban. Now, 9645, I think, was the Muslim ban. There are people in DV 2020. I don't think in 2021 because it stopped by then. But in DV 2020, there were people who were refused earlier in the year on the Muslim ban. Now, those people, if we were still in DV 2020, and that ban was then revoked as it was during 2020, then those people could, I believe, have turned their case around and said, okay, so I can come in now, right? My earlier denial is available to reopen. Now, I'm hoping that is the case, but I'm not 100% sure it's the case, right? So we'll have to see what the how that works out. And I could have the dates wrong because, of course, thinking about it, Trump didn't work against himself, but nevertheless, I'm trying to think. So the date would have been in early 2021. We'll have to see whether that can be retroactively applied to the cases already refused. I know at some point there was a statement when Biden revoked the Muslim ban, he said that there needs to be a review of which cases could be reopened, and he referred back to all the years back into 2017. The government later came back and said, no, we're not going to go back to 2017, 2018, etc. They just didn't want to do that. So it's something that still needs to be resolved. It wasn't discussed, as you quite rightly said, today. Today is not, was not that wasn't a central theme of any of the lawsuits in Go or Good Luck or any of the others, Gomez, etc. That wasn't the theme of it, right? So, but we'll have to wait and see. But thanks for that question. It's an interesting question. Oh, no, that's on 2023, I should imagine. 2023. Have you any idea about good luck? Well, that's what we're talking about. Finally watching, says Mateza from the United States. Welcome. Do I look any different now you're in America? No, I don't know. Okay. Okay. So, second question first. Could the final decision be next week? Absolutely not. We're not going to hear in a week. It'll probably take weeks, several weeks, possibly months before we get a final decision. Could there be an increase in the number of visas? That was what the cross appeal was about. That was what Charles Cook's a few minutes was about. Although, frankly, he launched very strongly into supporting the earlier arguments that had been made, particularly by Jesse. And I loved that few minutes. I thought it was very strong. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see whether we can get an increase in the numbers. I think one of the fundamental issues that was referred to today was that a case brought before the court prior to the deadline and a reservation of visas made prior to the deadline is very different to a case brought after the deadline, and therefore I would say a reservation made after the deadline. So since we had a reservation of X number of visas before the deadline, there's a difficulty in increasing that number after the deadline. I don't think Charles Cook's anybody's fool, so he obviously believes it can be done. But it just strikes me as something that's a little bit difficult, given that the way that deadline operates in relation to these sort of lawsuits. Okay. Okay. All right. So I'm just looking for questions. I'm trying to only take questions about today's hearing. Okay. I don't want to make this a general discussion because I only have a few minutes and I just wanted to cover this. And I need to get some. I've got some coffee, but I need to get some breakfast as well. Okay. So any other? Luca, I'm glad you're live right after the hearing. It was an interesting one, especially read the part when the judge was contradicting with Kara Ulsterberg. Yeah, no, I love that. There were a couple of moments when the judges, when they were getting frustrated, I thought that was quite cool. But also, that's the principle, right, Luca? That's how it works. They play a position. They play devil's advocate from both sides in order to sort of fully delve into the issues. But I do enjoy those moments when they get frustrated when they were saying to the government lawyer and Judge Srinivasan said something like, "I'll just try one more time" or something, because she wasn't getting it. So yeah, I love that. I did enjoy it. Okay, Malia, nice to hear from you. I haven't heard from you for a little while. So yeah, you're obviously waiting on the outcome of this lawsuit. Do you think the government's Prince Owusu says? Do you think the government will go to the Supreme Court if the appeal court uphold the decision of the lower court? This is a great question. Jesse has talked about this. He thinks that they would try and take it to the Supreme Court. Now, when you try and take a case to the Supreme Court may or may not take the case. It doesn't, just because someone says, "Oh, I disagree with with what the appeal court has done, I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court." That doesn't force the Supreme Court to take the case. They could look at it and they could say, "No, we're not interested in arguing this. Listening to this argument, we'll pass that back down to the appeal court. Whatever decision they want to make." That's what they could say, and that happens in, I don't know, I want to say 90% of cases. I think it's far more than that. So many more cases are asked to be seen before the Supreme Court than are actually heard before the Supreme Court, right? So even if the government ask, it doesn't mean that the Supreme Court will take it. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. The lawyers see those things differently. Some of the lawyers believe it will go up to the Supreme Court. Some believe it won't. So we'll have to wait and see what the answer is there. Unfortunately, this will not be a fast process, and we need to continue to be patient. And I know many of you, your patience is exhausted, and I'm not surprised. But but we have no choice. This is just the way things work. Okay. Another good question here. This is about DV2021 winners residing in the USA, but the case still waiting for adjudication at USCIS. Are we also including the visa reservation? After a few inquiries, they are still reviewing a case. To me, this is a question, Asami, that is more about not what is right or what is possible, but what is smart, right? Now, we know that there is going to be a small number of reserve visas. There is a small number of reserve visas. If we win the appeal and visas start being issued, they'll be issued very quickly. You would be disadvantaging yourself by trying to do adjustment of status, because in consular processing, when the case is scheduled for interview, there are visas assigned to that case, right? They're reserved for that case, right? So in consular processing, if you get an interview, and you pass your interview, then you're getting the visa. In adjustment of status, they go through the whole process, takes however long time that takes. They go through the biometrics and everything else. They have the final interview potentially. They don't always interview, but when they do, they have the final interview, and then they check to see if there's a visa available. If you go down that path, which is a slower path, from the day we start the race, when the appeal is won, then you will lose your chance, because other cases will go faster. So you've got to be smart, not logical, right? Whether it's logical to have adjustment of status be covered or not is not the point. The question is, should you go down that path? And my answer to that is clearly no. You shouldn't try and do adjustment of status. You should go and do consular processing. If you don't do that, you won't be covered. That's the simple truth. Any clarity for those that won DV 2021 but didn't file a lawsuit? Yeah, I addressed this earlier. Basically, the clarity is no, you didn't file a lawsuit, therefore you lost a chance. That's essentially it, apart from the Rye case. Okay. Okay, lots of other questions about 23 and 22, etc., and photos, but I really don't want to go into those right now. Okay, let me just go down. I'll just go down towards the end. What next? What next? I think I've addressed. Sorry, just looking at. Okay. Prioritization, we haven't talked about that. Were they insisting today to prioritize plaintiffs, even though Judge Mehta precised that the 9,095 visas are equally reserved to anyone who never got a chance to interview? Oh, no, they weren't. Oh, I see what you're saying. No, there is no prioritization for plaintiffs over non-plaintiffs in DV 2020. There is a prioritization, or a simple fact, for plaintiffs in the Go and Good Luck again over non-plaintiffs who are not covered by Rye. So separating the 2 years, for DV 2020, there is no preference for a plaintiff that paid, for representation or didn't pay, was one of the lucky 7 that was on the Gomez case. There's no difference between the plaintiffs and the non-plaintiffs in DV 2020. There is a difference in DV 2021. If you didn't pay to be on a lawsuit and you're not covered by Rye, then your chance is over. Okay, so no, they were not trying to change that today. As per the reservation argument, if initial decision reservation was made before the FY ending, playing with the numbers after the statutory deadline should be accepted. After the statute, if the that would be the only way that Chuck would make the case. Essentially, I think what you're saying, Luca, is the way I look at it is I think what Chuck is doing, but I'm not 100% sure, is he would be saying, look, we bought the case before the deadline. You made a decision, but the decision was inaccurate, and therefore we're allowed to challenge that part of the decision and increase the reservation. That would be the way they would play it for sure. I just think that the before deadline and after deadline thing, might make life kind of difficult. But I take your point, and that's most certainly what Chuck is relying on. Okay, just wrap up with a couple of last comments like this. What do you think after hearing both sides of the arguments? Are we in a good position? I've always thought we were in a good position. For when DV2020 lawsuit started way back, many months ago, the timeline sort of confuses me now, but it's a long time ago we started this argument, right? And I've always thought it was good. I remember speaking to Jesse Bless very early on, and Curtis very early on, and I felt fundamentally, we've got a good chance on this, and I was pleased with Meta's decision. I'm no less confident than I ever have been now, and the hearing today I thought went well. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. We'll have to see. We'll have to see though. Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay. Any last comments about today's hearing? Let's see. It's been 3 years since DV2020. People's lives have changed, like getting married or having children. It wasn't discussed. Why is that? And also, the deadline is coming closer of DV2020 or 2021. What will happen now? Forget the deadline. The deadline is now moot, right? The deadline was to issue visas by the end of this year. That's not going to happen, and it will be extended, right? So don't worry about the deadline. In terms of people's lives changing, getting married and having babies and that sort of thing, it's very normal stuff. I think what will happen is that as cases get scheduled for the 9,095 or the go and good luck cases, they will have to figure out, okay, how many visas do you need? Oh, you started off single, but you're married now. You're married and you've got a kid. So you needed one, now you need three. Okay, three is what you're going to take. I don't think they are going to I don't think they're going to say, okay, you only had one person on your case in the beginning and you got married and you had a baby, so sorry, they can't get visas. You're going to get all three, right? That seems very clear to me. Okay. I think I've answered both these questions. How long? Could take 3 months. Will it go further to the Supreme Court? Maybe, but not for certain. We'll have to wait and see. Right. I think that's probably most of the questions on DV2020 and DV2021. And I think we'll, oh my God. I just want to address this one. Explain 2023 or lawsuit how to join the benefits. We're not going to have any lawsuits in DV 2023. I really hope not. We shouldn't need any, right? So please, let's not talk about DV 2023 lawsuits. There's no need for them. DV 2023 is already showing that it's being run much better than DV 2022. It's working well. It's fine. You don't need lawsuits. You just need patience. Okay. Okay. Oh, and Synthesia. Yeah. So you will. This is a good point. I would, if I were you, I would renew my police certificate if you're a DV 2020 or 2021 applicant. You're waiting for the outcome of these lawsuits, particularly if it takes a few weeks to get that. I would be doing that in the next few weeks. Yeah, because those police certificates, they're valid for 2 years. You could get it now and extend that for 2 years. That would be fine. If it costs you a few dollars, so be it, you know. But it's better than losing a chance because you're not properly ready for the interview, right? So so go ahead and do that. Get your police certificates. That's a good point. Okay, everybody, I think we'll call it a day at that. I need to get some breakfast, and but thanks for listening in, and fingers crossed. Well done to the lawyers. I think they all did a great job. So you know, well done to them, and you know, I'm very pleased that they're still arguing for your rights all this time later. So thank goodness to the lawyers, frankly, on those two cases or those 2 years. They've been important. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Cheers now. Bye-bye.